Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more. Okay, audience, here's the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer.
Oh, and we're on. Welcome to Author's Edge Show. Join us for lively conversations with writers, publishers, songwriters, illustrators, and artists diving into the art of storytelling. Catch us live every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929.9. Spit it out. And KXOK FM 102.9, or stream online at KXOK 102.9.com and KWRH929.com, and via free apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The show also airs nationwide Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. on My Genre Radio Network. Missed an episode? Find us anytime on SoundCloud, YouTube, or at authorsedge.org. That's authorsedge.org. Welcome back to the studio, everyone, and welcome to Author's Edge. I am your host, Guy L. Freer, and today we have an exciting guest joining us, Carrie Holloway. She is a freelance editor and copyright with over 20 years experience helping authors, nonprofits, and small business owners and Christian ministries. As the principal of Successful Improvements, she is committed to helping people share their story and specializes in transforming ideas into a polished and effective message. Carrie provides full-service editing for manuscripts in the following genres: adult nonfiction, personal memoir, Christian ministry, youth programs, women, family, personal journal, and youth nonfiction and fiction, children's picture books, and early readers. Carrie is a board member of the St. Louis Publishers Association, a nonprofit membership organization committed to helping authors publish, promote, and sell more books. Find her at successful-improvements.com. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you.
Welcome to Author's Edge. And today we're hanging out with an editor and word wizard, Carrie Holloway. Carrie, so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started at the beginning. Every editor has a story, and Carrie, yours spans over 2 decades. So let's begin there. Okay? Why did you become an editor?
I became an editor first because I love reading. I love books. And I like to help people tell their stories. Because it's one thing to have the story in your head, whether you made it up or you're telling your personal experience or you want people to learn something. It's another thing to tell it on paper so that people that don't know you understand what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right? So you can talk about it and explain it to your friends. And let's say you are explaining something about a different culture, or you are an expert in something they have zero experience in. You can say, okay, let me break it down to you like this in many, many bites. As your friend, you can explain it to them perfectly.
No problem.
But a book on a shelf, people don't know you. So you've got to be able to explain it so that anybody reads it and they get what you're talking about, as if you were talking to them face to face.
Absolutely. And why do you enjoy working with authors?
Well, I understand it's like hard to write that book.
Okay. You could have been a teacher. See, I love books too. I mean, that's what got me into teaching. All right. Was my passion for books. So you could have been a teacher, but instead you decided to do authors.
Yes. I
Why
like
that?
working with kids, but it's a calling to be a teacher. Like I do volunteer work with kids. I can see kids once a week or, a couple times a month, once a month or whatever, but like every day working with their little personalities and temperaments. I don't have that gift. God has not graced me with that calling. But working with adults, I can be sensitive enough to the ones that are like, I don't think this is well written. I'm not really good at writing. I'm like, absolutely not. Whatever pushed you to sit down for however many weeks, months, years to type out that story, you are a writer. And once you publish it, you are an author. So I want to help them get through that process. And the first time is always really hard.
Painful.
Yes. But once you get through it, then the next time is not as bad. It's like, having your first kid, buying your first house, you have no clue. But then once you've done it, the next time it's a lot easier.
It is. That is very true. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this over 20 years. I started.
How did you start?
Oh my gosh. Working in corporate America after I got my MBA, I was working. I worked some in development with nonprofits, but then when I got to corporate America, I got to work with their foundations, and they had 2 foundations, and it was awesome just being on the other side where you're the one handing out the money. And I got to see so many organizations that they had this great work they were doing, but they weren't really telling the story right. It was like in English paper talk, or it was like data driven spewing talk like you would do for like government grant. But when you're asking for the local corporation or foundation, hey, we need 20 grand for this, you got to tell them the story. And I wasn't seeing that. And then I got to work with a couple of authors. I wasn't doing it professional or anything. And they're like, hey, you like to read. What do you think about this? Can you help me with this? And I was like, the way you explained it to me is nothing like what you wrote on the page. Let's start chopping this up. And
tell me.
Yes.
And then let's write it down.
Yes. And it kind of grew organically from that.
Okay.
And my husband and a friend of his started a publishing company years ago where they just started doing like journal books.
Right.
For people that wanted to take notes like at church. And they were like, hey, we've got the idea and we wrote it on paper. Can you help us format this so it looks like right? And I did that one. And then they had a friend that was writing a book. And they're like, Carrie likes to read. Can you help with this? And that first one, I was like, sure. And when I got to working on it, it was way, way more
than what you thought.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Once we got into the weeds, that person was like, well, we got to just write the whole thing over. And I was like, pretty much. That was a learning lesson. And that helped me like build my structure for how, I need to do this as a business. I learned what not to do for billing, how to help them understand that, what they wrote, they're thinking it's like the sun, moon, and the stars. Yes, it is. It's very rough. Sun, moon is like that rough diamond out of the coal.
Right.
We're going to work with it to make it sparkle, but it's going to take some work.
But it's going to take some work.
Yes.
What keeps you inspired all these years?
Man, I really like when people have something that they want to do, and they may not have experience in it, or they don't have the money, the connections or whatever, but they're so passionate about it. And they're just like, I need to figure this out, however I can do it, whether it's an event or their story or a program. And I can see like, okay, you're going to need these 3 things. I'm already thinking like, did you do this? Have you called this person? And they're like, I didn't consider that. I'm like, okay, what about this? What about this? I'm already like looking at all the things they're not thinking about. Yes. So, I mean, editors, we're like problem solvers. We're organizers. We're the coach. We're, your cheerleading section, all the things from behind the scenes.
Yes.
Because I mean, they don't really realize it. And it's almost like I wish authors could see, even like best-selling writers see their rough draft of their bestseller, so they could see like, yeah, everybody's rough is rough.
Everybody's rough is really rough.
Really rough.
Yes.
Even the ones that sell millions of copies.
Yes.
If you could see their original draft,
you would understand.
Yes.
Yeah. What makes a story worth working on? How do you determine that? How do you say this is really something we can do, and that one, no?
I think it really depends on the author. Like if they're really clear on who they wrote it for and how it's going to benefit who's it for, because no book is for like everyone on the planet. It's just not.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is. So you got to be really clear. I wrote this book to help people learn this. These type of people can learn this, and it will benefit them this way.
Okay.
And if they're passionate and clear about that, and then if I look at the work and what they've written is reflecting so that at least I can see it, because I've read some where it's like all over the place.
Right.
And it's like, you said this was a cookbook for new moms for their toddlers. And you're talking about cordon bleu and cocoa V and just, you're all over the, like, toddlers aren't eating that.
Right. No.
Talk about finger foods.
Right. Right.
So it's, if the author is super clear and their work reflects, even if it's rough, what they've said their intention is, then we can work with that.
Right.
Now, if what they've written does not match what their intentions are, then I can read what they've said. I said, hey, you said it's for this person and they're going to get this benefit.
And we can weed this out and save this for another book.
Yes, because sometimes it's like that, or sometimes it's bloated and it's, you need to cut this in half, and this could be part 2, or this could be a supplement, but you can't have it all in there. And it's really hard.
Right.
No one likes to cut their darlings, but you've got to. And I think my background in business has helped me with that, because in MBA school, we were just taught you've got to cut the fat.
Right.
So I was accustomed to writing like executive summaries about corporations in like 2 to 5 pages.
Right.
And, you know, that experience of even in business school where you're reading a 50-page annual report on Ford Motor Company, which, you know, they've got billions in sales. How do you condense what they've done in a year into 50 pages? Get to the point.
Get to the point.
So the executive summary is a couple pages. You've got maybe 10 pages explaining their new products and what they see in the future. And the rest of it's the nuts and bolts, the financials.
Right.
And even in those, people want to examine the schedules. They want to see the balance sheet. But if you just told the whole entire story of Ford Motor Company, that's like an encyclopedia
and nobody
set.
wants to read it.
Nobody wants to read that.
No.
Now, the descendants of Henry Ford, they may want to read all that.
Yeah, but that's a different book.
Right. That's a series of books, honestly.
Right.
But the Joe Public, he doesn't care about that. He's
No.
like, can I afford this new Ford car?
Right.
And shareholders, they are like, so what about this quarterly return?
Yeah, I just want to know the bottom line.
Yes.
That's all I want to know.
So I think my experience in that with the business school from that perspective is really cutting the fluff, cutting it. And it's hard. I know authors don't like to cut.
No.
And I'm not one to just slash and burn for the sake of cutting. Even, you know, when that first edit, you know, it looks like the page is like bleeding because there's so many red notes. And I talk to them about that ahead of time. Say, hey, I know you're going to see a lot of red. However, this is just the first.
You use red?
I do. When I use.
Why do you use red?
I want them to see it. I use Microsoft Word, and you know, you have the track changes with the editor notes.
Right.
So I have the comment bubbles on the right hand border side.
Right.
So if I'm just changing like grammar, it's just change, and they can just see Carrie took this out. But if there's like a sentence that's clunky or it contradicts what you said in the previous chapter, I'm highlighting that. I have specific questions in the comment bubbles, and I can say you should consider saying it this way or that way, or if you really want to say it how you've written, it's not in a way that's going to be appreciated for this audience. How do you want to go? So I'm really trying to present it as options. Okay. I'm only going to take something completely out if it's just false, or it's just like way out of left field. But if you're insistent, like,
or
no,
has nothing to do with anything.
Right. But if they're like, I really want to keep this, okay, fine. Here are your 3 options. How do you want to do it? Because the way it's written is not working.
Right.
Right.
You're listening to Author's Edge, and we are chatting with Carrie Holloway, freelance editor, copywriter, and founder of Successful Improvements. Catch us Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. Now, how about we dive into the work you actually do? You help everyone from nonprofits to small businesses. You wear a lot of editorial hats. The first question I hear a lot of people always ask is, why do I need an editor? And I cannot tell you the number of times that I am asked, and I've even had one person say, "Oh, this is fine. I don't need anybody to edit this." And I said to him, "That's okay. You can have this back then."
Mhm.
Okay. But so why do you need an editor?
You need an editor. First of all, you need someone that's not in your brain to read what you wrote on the page. First off.
Mhm.
Secondly, that person needs to be someone who has an interest and expertise in what you've written. And I say expertise, let's say if you're a physician and you're writing, 3 ways that you can, reduce your high cholesterol,
Mhm.
but you're writing it for regular people. It's not like a medical journal.
Right.
I don't need to be a physician to be able to review that for you, but I am going to be one to say, okay, you're talking about glycerides and this. What does that mean in regular people's terms?
Right.
When you're talking about technical things, speak to me like I'm 12. Break it down like that.
Right.
So when I mean like expertise and interest, they need to have experience in that genre.
Right.
So you shouldn't just give it to like your mom or your sister or your
Right.
friend that's an
That was the
English
next-
teacher.
Why not? Why can't I just use a friend or a relative? Why,
No.
or the English teacher?
No.
Why can't I just give it to my mom to read?
You can't give it to your mom because your mom loves you and she's not going to say this sucks.
That's exactly right.
Now, me as your editor, I will not tell you this sucks.
Right.
I will say, hey,
This is lovely.
No, I'll say this. I understand where you're coming from. This needs some work. Your best friend is going to be like, oh, yeah, it was great. But they're not going to say, I didn't understand what you were talking about. Whatever.
No, they're not. They never do.
They don't. And it's
They love you.
They do. And it's okay for them to read it, but you don't want to use them
as the editor.
You don't even want to use them as your test reader. Unless, let's say you've written like the next Twilight book, right? Now, if your bestie is obsessed with like vampire werewolf romance, yes, use her as a test reader.
You could.
Yes.
But don't use them as the end all.
No, you use her as your test reader when you're doing like your self-edit.
Mm-hmm.
But you need a professional touch because the professionals is looking at the technical parts, the grammar, spelling, that type of stuff that, spell check won't catch. But they're also looking at how are you explaining this for the target audience?
Right.
And how is this fitting with the genre you've selected and the times?
Right.
Because things change.
They do.
The book that you've written 10 years ago, you could republish it today, but you're going to need to change some things. Just
because we don't have dial phones anymore.
Right.
And they don't hang on the wall anymore.
No, they don't.
So yes, you do have to change.
You do.
What are the different types of editing that we have today?
Great. Now that I wrote down because I'm like, people always ask that. And there are like basic 4. I've seen some that explain like 5 or 6. And then you kind of get into the weeds. So basically, there's developmental.
And that does what?
That's the big picture top look. So let's say I've written the book or maybe I'm almost done, but I'm not sure if this is in the right order or
making sure that whoever got killed in Act 1, it doesn't show up in Act 3.
Yes, that's important.
Yes.
Yes. And I mean, you want to establish the structure for the story because it could be all over the place. And in your mind, of course, the full panoramic view of the story is in your brain.
Right.
All 100 million words, right? No one's going to read all that. You got to get it to, 80,000 words if it's novel. Right. If it's nonfiction, maybe 50,000. Again, that Ford Motor Company.
Right.
You're gonna condense it down. And you can absolutely do that. But the editor is going to show you how you can pull out the main parts.
Right.
So that people aren't lost. It's really a difficult skill to pull out everything in your brain and put it on the page that strangers understand it. That's what we do. That's what editors do. Now, the copy edit is the next level. So not everyone needs a developmental edit. If your story is complete and it goes in order so it makes sense.
How do you know if you need one or not?
A developmental edit? Your editor should be able to tell you that. I've talked to some authors that are like, yeah, I just need to proofread. It's good. It's great to go. And I'm like, have you had any editor review it? No. I reviewed it. I checked the spelling. I just need proofreading. I feel like there's a couple typos. It's good. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Your editor should be able to read it and tell you whether they read the full manuscript or take a sample chunk.
Mm-hmm.
We can see enough to say, okay, I see where you're going. This is going in order. You're making all of the turns to get from point A to point B. We can also see you promised point A to point B. You've stopped on this left-hand corner and you kind of did a U-turn and then you bagged up and you went down the alley and you're a couple blocks over from point B, but you're not quite there. Again, in your mind, all the turns were there. You didn't realize you took some things out.
Right.
So your editor will be able to tell you that. Honestly, most editors will offer that sample assessment or review. Some will offer it for free if it's a very small sample. Some you can pay for. But you've got to think about it as an author. This is an investment if you're looking to publish, whether you self-publish, you go through a smaller house or traditional publishing. It's an investment, right?
Yes.
And I advise authors, you've got to get that sample edit.
Yes. And I do advise them to pay for it.
Yes.
And understand that that's probably going to be the most expensive part of your journey as far as publishing, whether it's self-publishing, whatever, it's going to be your most expensive part.
Yes.
And it's worth the investment.
It is. The only instance where it wouldn't be that case is if you were doing a children's book that's illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Then their biggest chunk is going to be, of course, the pictures.
The pictures.
And the cover, because they don't have that many words.
Right.
But that's something that I offer, whether you're a client of mine or not, because some prospects are just like, I need someone to look at it, whether they're willing to pay for the sample or the full. And then if I do the full, I'm writing, it could be like 5 to 8 pages where I'm giving details for each chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying here. These are my questions. These are your options. And then they can take it and say, yes, I want to go forward with you. Or if they choose to go with someone else, that's theirs to keep.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they've had a professional review that can show them, here's some sections I need to work on.
Right.
Yeah.
So you also do copy edit?
Yes. So the copy edit, you're getting really into the meat of it.
The meat of it.
You're working with the grammar. You really got into the story structure, and you're working about you're focusing on the comprehension. Does this make sense? Again,
and is the reader understanding what it is that I've written?
That is so much a part of it. And I don't think authors realize it until you share it with someone else that doesn't know you. I keep emphasizing that you can't just ask people that know and love you. If a perfect stranger can read it and they get what you're talking about, you've done really well.
Right.
And the best editors will work on your manuscript. And whether it's a novel or it's nonfiction, it should sound like you. I'm very particular on that, making sure that you preserve the tone and the style, which goes into line editing. You're still focusing on the narrative flow, but that tone and the style, meaning how do you speak when I talk to you face to face?
Right.
Some people have a sense of humor. Some people like to talk. You know how on television they say you break the fourth wall, and you do like that. Your book should sound like how you speak. So if I read your book and then I meet you in person, I'm like, oh man, your voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very tricky to do.
Yeah.
And the best editors, your book shouldn't sound like me. You shouldn't see Carrie's fingerprints or the way Carrie speaks in your book. It should sound like you.
It absolutely should sound like you.
Yes. Oh, and then the final one is the proofread, and that's the final check.
And that's the one making sure that all of the punctuation is done correctly.
And that is done after your interior layout.
Right.
Yes.
That's after all the formatting. That's the very, very last thing that's done before it goes to print.
Yes. And usually your proofreader, you don't want, if you've worked with your editor through the developmental copy and line edit, you need to hire a separate proofreader.
Right.
Because by that time, I'm too integrated into your works.
And you've seen too much of it, and you're too used to it, and it's all there in front of you, and your eyeballs are too trained.
Yes. And by that time, I'm hearing your words in my head. So I hire the proofreader separately.
Right. We have got more great conversations coming up with Carrie Holloway. But first, let's take a quick break. Stick around. You're listening to Author's Edge on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. Are you an author, publisher, editor, illustrator, songwriter, or artist looking to expand your reach? Advertise on Author's Edge to connect with passionate readers and industry insiders. With engaging interviews, reviews, and discussions, your book will shine. Why choose us? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost sales and visibility, target impactful ads, trusted host endorsements. Elevate your presence with Author's Edge. Contact us today at 573-714-1352, where authors and readers meet.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
Merton Services is a heating, air conditioning, and commercial refrigeration business that's been providing exceptional services in St. Louis for over 50 years, and they take pride in providing services and comfort to both residential and commercial customers. With the temperatures rising in the summer and dropping in the winter, your comfort and health can be put in jeopardy. With proper checks and maintenance, Mertens will keep your equipment in top shape. And when it's time to replace your furnace or your air conditioner, they've got you covered. With a wide range of options, Mertens has the perfect HVAC system to fit all of your needs. To find out how the good folks at Merton Services can help you with all of your HVAC needs, contact Merton Services at 314-845-1500. That's 314-845-1500. Merton Services, 314-845-1500.
Jewels on Hampton in St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks, sports memorabilia, and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa. Call them at 314-752-5000. 314-752-5000. Jewels on Hampton.
Back to Author's Edge, and I'm chatting with Carrie Holloway, a pro at turning rough drafts into polished gems. Hear us weekly on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. And we're talking about getting your books edited. Now, you help shape stories every day. So let's talk about how you bring out author's voice and making it shine. Okay. What's the biggest mistake new writers make?
I think trying to sound like someone else.
Whether
a popular author in their genre, or they try to sound like what they don't actually speak. Like, you know how if you've ever had to do a speech and you try to have the speaker voice.
Yes.
Like I'm presenting.
Yes.
That works in presentations. When someone's reading a book, they don't want to hear that.
No.
But I also, my authors, before we even get started on the process, I have my own questionnaire with them. Then I'm asking them, how do you want this book to sound in the reader's head? Do you want it to be a conversational tone, as in you and the reader are talking back and forth? Do you want it to sound like they're part of a group discussion where they're part of the circle and you are referring to popular topics, or this is what's going in the industry now? Did you know this? Reader, what do you think? Do you want them to feel like they are in an auditorium and you are instructing them? There's so many choices, and that's something they didn't think about. And they're like, how do I want it to hear? And there's so much power you have.
That's for nonfiction.
It can even be in fiction.
Okay.
Now, I don't work in adult fiction, but let's say your novel, let's use romance, for example. Some romance novels, the narration just goes through and it's like, John saw Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
She took his breath away. He couldn't talk about it anymore. And then when he met up with his friend for drinks later, he's like, man, I saw this woman.
Yeah.
All the things, right?
Yeah.
Other romance novels take the his and hers viewpoint.
Right.
So it's John's like, oh, I walked into the restaurant. I saw this woman. Oh my God. She took my breath away. I just couldn't take it. I couldn't wait up to meet with my friend after work. And then her perspective is she's in the same restaurant. I saw this guy staring at me and he just stared and it was kind of creepy. I didn't know what that was all about. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
So the authors have that choice. And just in those two examples, you can get a completely different experience reading like that. Same story. But if you're telling it from his and hers viewpoint, or good guy, bad guy, or maybe it's a narrative where I'm going to show you the story and watch as it unfolds. Like, remember Desperate Housewives?
Yes.
How they would start each episode from the perspective of the friend that died. And she would give the introduction. Okay, these three, they had these problems and it was a big blow up. Let's see how they work it out. And then they show the story.
Yes.
That's another option as well.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the options are endless. And I'm all for whatever the author picks. But once you say, I want to do it like this,
we stick to it.
absolutely. Because if you change it up, then the reader is going to be like, well, what the world is going on?
Right.
And once you have a couple of what's going on, then you're like,
then the reader loses interest. They put the book down and they walk away.
Don't want that.
And they don't ever go back to that author again.
Absolutely. And I also remind authors, hey, take yourself out of writer brain and think about when you go to the bookstore or the library and you pick up something and the cover's cool and you read the back and you're like, oh, this sounds great. And then you start reading, you're like, well, what is going on?
Yeah.
Or the name changes, or remember the example, somebody died in chapter 2 and now they're talking to chapter 5.
Yeah. Don't.
Now you're mad. So
now
it's
you're
like,
mad.
Don't do that to your people.
Don't do that to your people. Do you ever suggest rewrites or cuts, or do you tell them, this isn't, take it out?
Yes.
Are you cold?
No, that's what I said to your husband earlier before we started. I use a gentle touch. You have to handle it like a baby. But I mean,
you're so much nicer than I am.
But even babies, I mean, have you seen how nurses handle newborns in the hospital?
Mhm.
They're just like,
yeah, that's me.
but they're not hurting.
No, but I'm just efficient.
It looks like, oh my gosh, they're gonna pull the baby's arms apart. But they've done it so much, they're like, the baby it's all right. Just
Yeah.
Where the new parent may be like, I can't, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I treat it that way.
Are you the new parent?
No, I would say I'm the nurse with the nice
efficient
voice.
Oh, the nice voice?
The nice voice, like, okay, it's okay. I'm gonna show you how to wrap this baby up, but you have to do it like this, and we gotta hurry up. So if I'm only saying something comes out if it's just completely does not fit in at all.
And okay. The stubborn writer.
Oh man.
The stubborn writer who says, I like it this way. This is the way I want it. And tough patooies. Then what?
Then I'm calling them back to their 3 main points. And we didn't talk about that yet. But when I'm working with authors, before you even start with an editor or anything, you got to be crystal clear on your 3 main points. They're where you start. And I call them your APB. So just like, police or local authorities, they put out an all points bulletin. It's important. Listen up, focus. For authors, your APB is your audience, your purpose, and your benefit.
Okay.
Who is this book for? That's the audience.
Okay.
The purpose. Why did you write this book?
Okay.
The benefit.
Okay.
What's in it for the person who reads it?
Okay.
Not because you love it. Readers are like, what's in it for me? You think it's awesome because it's your baby. Why do they care? And what are they going to get out of it? If they're not getting a benefit out of it, then
you might as well not even bother.
Absolutely. I'm pinning them on that before we start anything, before the contract, before I edit one word. And if you don't know your APB, we can't even get started yet, because that's the guidepost for the whole process.
Okay.
You should have that in front of you while you're writing. so that you don't start writing something that in your mind is like, oh, that is so good. That's so clever. Oh, no, the audience, they wouldn't appreciate that. They won't get that. Oh, I love this paragraph. This page rocks.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't benefit them. Yes, the page rocks,
But it doesn't.
it doesn't benefit. Get it out of there. So if you have that APB in front of you and there's something you're fighting for, if it doesn't ring true with that audience, the purpose or the benefit, it cannot stay. I know you love it. Maybe you put it in a blog post later. Maybe you put it in a social media post. You put it into a video. It's not going in this book the way it's written. And if you are just adamant, I want to keep this page, okay. So we need to take this section out. We need to reword this paragraph and change this so that it fits within this parameter. When I say they're goalpost, I'm working from that. So even while I'm making marks, I'm not going to change something just because I personally don't like it. But if it doesn't, if you're not speaking the way the audience gets it, we've got to change that. If it's not a benefit to them, we've got to change it. If you put it in there just because it sounds good, but it doesn't align with the purpose, 3 ways to lose weight, and you're talking about something completely unrelated, but it's just great, that doesn't matter.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I've had some clients that are just like adamant, and some have gone on to do what they want to do. And after the fact, they were like, you were right. And they got like reader comments. Like, no.
Have you ever fired a writer?
Oh, Lord.
I mean, too harsh of a word there, fire.
Okay. Have you ever said to a writer, I really like you, but this isn't working out?
Oh, man, I've had a
Well,
situation in the past where I did not respond. It was like a back and forth. And they ultimately were like, I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to go in a different direction. I said, okay, great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you have with whoever you work with in the future. And then months later, they circle back and it's like, hey, you know what? I think I changed my mind and I want to go back into it. And I feel so bad. I'm thinking about this now. That came at like the worst possible time in life. There were like 12 million things going on at the same time and traveling. And I just was like, I can't deal with this right now. And I didn't circle back.
And you didn't.
And I'm like, oh, so much time has gone back. I need to. But it was a lot of back and forth.
Right.
Yes, I want to work. No, I don't. I'm going to do it this way.
But have you ever started with somebody and had them say, and you realize, see, it's not so much that you started with someone and they wouldn't listen to you.
Oof, it's hard. It's hard.
Do you know what
Yes.
You knew what you were doing. You were telling them the right path. You were explaining to them, listen, this isn't working. What you're writing needs to be edited. This needs to be done. And they are not listening to you.
Yes. It's so hard.
That you really want to just take the manuscript and slap them upside the head.
Listen, there are a couple times I'm just like, hey, according to the contract terms, we need to do this. But
Yeah.
I've learned.
Well, you know what I'm
learned-
saying.
I've learned through some hard learned lessons with previous clients. So I'm like so particular now, even in my contract terms. And they first look at the contract, I'm like, oh my God, it's 4 pages. Absolutely. Because I'm putting all the scenarios in there. If we start on day 1, after 30 days, if I've done this and you change these are the terms of what percentage you can expect to get a refund. If we go to step 2 and you change your mind, this is what you can expect to get. If we get to step 3, I've had a couple times I've been burned. So I'm like,
because I've had some scenarios where
Yes.
it was just not pretty.
and I don't ever want to be in a situation again where I've gone through that and I've put in so much work.
Describe the process of working with an editor.
It's good. It's good. Okay. I think it should start with a consultation.
Okay.
Whether you have the free one or you pay for one that's more extended, because some authors will offer like 10, 15 minutes free, but you can't really get into much.
I
in
would
10,
think
15
not.
minutes.
Yeah.
I personally offer 40-minute free consultations. And I tell them ahead of time, hey, have your questions written out. So we're not just talking. because authors get excited about their work and they just get the no, have your 10 questions and we're going to go through them.
Okay.
And I take notes during that conversation and I send them an email with our notes, and I have my own questions for them. And they can get a feel for, is this someone I want to maybe work with more or maybe have another conversation? And that's also for me to see,
Right.
is this the type of person I can work with? Because if someone is so like, I'm not willing to change anything, it's mine, it's perfect, I just want you to fix the words, God bless you.
And move on.
I can refer you to these organizations, but this is not a good fit. And then after that consultation, I really think you should have an editorial assessment or review.
Mm-hmm.
Same, it's a review of either a sample section or the full manuscript. Again, it's so you can see, are the comments and the questions that editor is saying, does it make sense to you? Are they bringing up good points you didn't consider?
Mm-hmm.
Are they showing, oh, I didn't realize I missed that part. Or if they even have comments about a chapter or a section that was like really difficult for you, and they gave some suggestions that helps you. Great for the author. For me as the editor, it helps me to see,
Right.
how much heavy lifting does this need?
Ah.
I need to see. I am not taking I would not take a client sight unseen and they say it's 50,000 words. How much do you charge? I need to see what I'm working with.
Right.
So you can pay for the sample or you can pay for the full. If you choose to go forward with me, the portion you paid for the full, that can be applied to the total fee.
Right.
But I need to see what kind of writer you are, where you're going, does it make sense? And then I can tell them from my professional opinion, I see you at this level, this level, this level. I anticipate it needs this, this, and this, plus whatever the notes and questions are in the assessment.
Right.
Right. So I always tell authors, hey, editors can give you a quote of a fee range, but don't feel comfortable if someone just says sight unseen 50,000 words. Oh, that's going to cost you $2,000. No way. That's like going to the mechanic and my car is making a noise and they're like, that's $1,000 to fix it. They haven't even gotten under the hood.
Right.
You need someone to be able to look at it. Now, if it's a children's book that's illustrated, they could probably give you a flat fee because it's just so many words. But anything over 30, 40,000 words, even if it's 20,000 words, they need to be able to see what they're working with. Right. So that's the second step, the assessment. The third one is you talk about your goals and your specific needs, like what your budget is, what your timeline. Are you trying to publish this before you have some big events?
Right.
Or, to help your business, you're going to be at some conference, whatever that is, your budget.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
And I have real conversations with editors because sometimes they believe, oh, I can get this for like a couple $100 and somebody can do my cover for like $100. No,
that's not happening.
No, it's not going to be good.
No.
And I wouldn't even,
no.
Just no.
It's just no.
And it's so, there's so many shady characters out here that take advantage. I have had consultations with so many authors that said, well, I found this company that said they would help me publish and they were going to charge like $2,000. And I said, okay, well, what does that include? And they're like, well, I said, listen, this is just a consultation. It's happened in like the free one. And I say, do you mind sharing with me what they said it'll cover? And I've talked to authors where it's been like 2 pages of stuff they said they'll do. And out of that $2,000, that included no copies of the book.
Right.
The whole first page was stuff they could do.
Right.
I was like, well, first of all, you can get your own ISBN. You can get your own barcode. Right. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this.
Right.
You can
all of this. Yeah.
There's 30 things they're offering for $2,000. I said, well, really, you only need them for like 8. And that should not cost $2,000.
Right.
Unless you're getting a box of like 50 copies.
Yeah.
And then they see like, oh, that's not good.
No.
Yes.
Most people don't understand. And they don't do their research.
Yes.
They don't do their own research. And that to me is mind boggling. They'll research hangnail, but they won't research how to do a book.
Yes. And it's a process. It's an investment of time and money.
Right.
Some can do it in like 6 to 8 months. Some people it takes years.
Well, because it's their baby.
I'm so sensitive about the baby. I know.
They're so sensitive about the baby.
And like all that happens before you even do the contract in the process, right? And you absolutely should have a contract.
Oh, yes.
and you should be able to have a conversation.
That's why I couldn't understand some of the people that I've spoken with. They say, "Well, we're friends. Well, I
Mm-mm.
trust you." I'm like, "No,
Mm-mm.
no, 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 no. I want a contract."
I've worked with family members and we've had contracts.
Yes, doesn't matter.
You want to have all the terms spelled out
Yes,
because you never know what's going to happen. Not to say that you will fall out, but life could happen. You know, somebody gets sick, something with your house, major whatever. You want to have it all spelled out so that both parties are protected in each step of the
Yeah.
process. And you should be really clear on that contract. So they shouldn't just be sending you like 4 lines. I'm going to do your book. It costs X amount of dollars. We'll be done December 3rd. No,
everything needs to be in there.
everything,
Every
every step
step
of the way.
Right.
Absolutely. And
Right.
that's like, then after you've done that, then you're starting the editing process. And
Right.
then every editor works different. Some want to have conversations after they've gone through the rounds. Some communicate through email, or they want to do a Zoom. All that you need to hash out during the contract terms. And then when they're working on it, you've got to stay organized. So whatever notes your editor is giving you, consider this. Hey, I did a reference point on this. Fact check. That's not right. You want to look back into this. Whatever the steps are, you've got to stay organized with that. And the biggest thing is don't touch your book while I'm working on it. Don't you dare.
Yes, don't you dare.
You wait on me.
I did my book with my mother. Oh my. She would change things so frequently, and I would just, I was pulling my hair out.
That is, oh my goodness.
And it's hard when it's your mom.
Oh, now see, yep. Now I've done family members, but not a parent.
Oh, and your mom keeps changing things. And of course, you can't yell at your mom.
Well, you can, but
Well, you can, but you're never successful.
I don't have any advice on dealing with the parents. Maybe if it's a sibling or
the
cousin
book
or
is already
something.
done. It's done. And it turned out wonderfully. I will
Yeah.
say that. But yes,
You
yeah.
just don't work on it, because then like your editor has to retrace their steps. Like even if you have the greatest idea, do it in a separate document. And then when
or just tell me.
Yes.
Just tell me.
Hey,
Yes.
I've got this
She would
idea.
change things,
Oh,
and I would
man.
just and my husband can tell you how I rant and raved like a crazy woman.
Yes.
How can I prepare to work with an editor?
Glad you asked that, because there's like steps to prepare. So I already talked about the 3 main starting points.
Okay. Quick.
Okay.
I want to do a radio identifier. Real
Okay.
quick one. And let's see if I have it. You are on Author's Edge today, and we're talking editing and storytelling with the talented Carrie Holloway. Join us Saturdays at 7 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. And we'll get back to that question. How can I prepare for an editor?
Okay. I know listeners are going to be tired of hearing that, but I say it over and over and over. It should be burned in your brain. That APB, your audience, your purpose, and the benefit to the reader.
Okay.
Put it on your forehead, tape it to the monitor, put it in a picture frame. Seriously, while you're typing the book,
Mm-hmm.
while you are self-editing the book, while you're working with your editor, while you're working on the back cover description, while you're working on your author's webpage and your social media page, when you're working on your marketing materials. Don't
Everywhere.
everywhere. And it should be like
Right there.
burned into your brain. And when I talk about self-edit, like authors are like, I can't edit myself. You absolutely should. You should.
Well, how about using things like Grammarly
No.
and things? No.
That's like spell check plus. When I say self-edit, I'm talking about doing a whole process. It's going to
Okay.
save you time and money. It's going to reduce the stress,
Mhm.
and it's going to get you prepared. So first thing, when you're writing your book and you type those last 2 words and you're just like, thank goodness, it's over. So many authors are like, I can't wait. Here, Carrie, take it. No. That's for your eyes only. Your original rough draft, nobody should read that. Not your spouse, your mom, your sister, your BFF, because you haven't even read it.
Right.
You typed it, you worked on it, but you didn't read it start to finish.
Right.
So when I'm saying you self-edit, when you finish typing those last 2 words, the end, like take a break. A week,
Put it away.
a couple weeks, a month. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't look at it. Like put it in a box. Just do other things so your
Right.
brain can reset, and then you're going to start the process. And when you're doing the first step, you're going to have a story time to yourself where you're going to read your book out loud. You're not going to type in it.
Read it out loud. That's what I used to teach my kids.
Yes.
That's what I taught my kids all the time. When you have written something, put it away and then pull it back out. Read it out loud.
You have
That's
to
the
read it out
best
loud.
way to do a proofing.
Yes. And if you are just too tempted, like I know I'm going to type, save it as a PDF and read it. And then while you're reading, you're going to write down little notes because you'll hear yourself trip over words.
Mhm.
You'll find something. I know I changed that, but you didn't. In your mind, you changed it, but your fingers didn't.
Right.
You're going to do that from the first page to the last page.
Mhm.
And you have to say it out loud. Like your brain has to hear the words out of your mouth.
Right.
You will catch stuff. You may be horrified by how much stuff you catch. It's okay.
It's true though.
But you do all of that. That's the first step. And then you go back to the Word document and you start to apply what notes you've written. But you're not going to save it as, my book, my awesome book. You're going to say my awesome book, rough draft 1. You don't want to overwrite it. You always want to save it as a new version so you don't lose anything, because you may say, oh, chapter 3, I hated it. I took it out. And then later when you work with the editor and they're like, hey, something's missing. Oh, I threw away chapter 3. It's gone. Don't do that. You may end up having 12 versions on your computer. It's okay. Nobody's going to see it but you and your editor. But that
Right.
rough, I don't want to see that.
Right. Right.
So you type in your notes that you've written, whatever changes. That may take you a week or two. It may take a couple of months. If you've got to rework a section or a chapter, it's totally fine. After you typed it in, PDF it, read it out loud again.
Do that several times.
You're going to do it several times. So if you only do it twice and you feel pretty good about it, then you can get a couple of sample readers. And again, try not to use like your family and besties.
Please don't.
Unless they are like diehard readers of that genre. So that's how I remember I used the example, like if you have a BFF that loves vampire romance.
Right.
And that's what you've written. It's okay for them to read it. But if your mom is not into vampires and werewolves,
Don't make her read it. She's gonna look at you and say, really, do I have to?
And don't pick a friend that likes to read, but they don't care about your kind of book.
Right.
You want the most honest feedback. So for your sample readers, you may only use 2 or 3. It's okay. But you want to hear from them, like, this made sense. Or I see where you were going, but I kind of got lost. Or in this section, it was kind of boring. I skipped ahead. So then you can take your notes and you're going to circle back again, typing it in, read it to yourself. It may take you 3, 4, 5, however many times.
However many times.
You're going to rinse and repeat that until you're like, I can't go any further.
Right.
Then you call me.
Right.
That's how you get prepared. In addition to knowing a realistic idea of your timeline and knowing what your budget is. And you may not be aware of what that is until you speak with someone. So that's why it's good to have a consultation, because whether you self-publish or you use a hybrid publisher, even with self-publishing, the quickest turnaround is going to be about 6 months.
Right.
That's super tight.
That's
Very tight.
yeah.
I've worked with some authors and their books have been really great, but we worked on translating it from industry speak to like general public. And that took months,
Right.
almost a year.
I don't see 6. I think
That's really aggressive.
That's totally aggressive. I don't think that's realistic.
The average is about a year. I've done some that have been under a year, closer to like 8 months, but it was really well written. And we were just translating it from industry type to regular people talk.
Mhm.
It could take a couple of years or more. But even if you're pursuing, I found a hybrid publisher or an indie publisher, and you're thinking, oh, this will totally be ready next summer. You don't know their timeline.
Right.
They may only publish 5 or 10 copies of your genre, and they're already booked for the next year.
Right.
So you're looking at 27 at the earliest,
right.
or 28.
Right.
So you've got to be realistic about
Right.
that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How can my editor help me throughout the process of preparing my manuscript for publication and beyond?
It's so good. I get so excited about this. I mean, okay.
Well, this is what your passion is.
It
I mean, if
is.
you weren't, you wouldn't be doing this if you weren't passionate about it.
That's true. 'Cause we
Or,
need a lot
or
of
let me put it
patience.
this way: you shouldn't be doing it if you weren't. I mean, that's how I felt about teaching. I taught for 39 years,
Ooh,
and I was passionate about it. But then I was also happy to retire too.
yes.
I got to my 39th year, and I was just like,
Mm.
done.
Ooh, that's a calling. That's why I said teaching was not for me.
So,
Your editor can help you all through the process. And the way I explain it to authors is like this: it should be a mutual partnership of respect. We are working together.
mhm, for
As
a
an
mu-
author, you
for-
have a
for
story.
a mutual end.
Yes. The author, you have a story to tell. My job as an editor is to make sure that it makes sense for the intended audience. So the way I explain it to authors is we're in a car. The author is in the driver's seat. Me as the editor, I'm in the passenger seat. So the author says, I want to go from point A to point B, and I want to take these people along, and this is how they're going to enjoy it. I'm saying, I'm the GPS for you. You want to get from point A to point B? You can take it this way, or this way. I'm also working as the road monitor to say, I know you want to take it this way, but the industry has changed. Readers aren't really feeling it like that anymore. Or readers want more of this. And I'm also acting as a passenger stand-in. Okay, pretend I'm your audience. What you said doesn't make sense to me as that audience.
Right.
How can we change that, right? So that's my role through the whole process. Your editor can help you with your book summary or synopsis on the back, because you may have an idea in your head, I wanted to say this. But just the way you describe your book, whether you do it like in an elevator pitch, it's a bit different than how the synopsis should be. It's got to speak to whoever's holding the book, to draw them in, to make them want to flip it back and maybe crack open, look at the table of contents. Let me look at the first page or so. So the way you describe it may not be in that format. Your editor can help you with that. They can help you with the content on your website. If you're like, I just need to build something, I don't know how to do it. You don't need, the website that's got a bajillion pages. It can be one long form where this is about me, this is what I do,
wow.
This is what you can get. They can help you with a lot of that, even your marketing materials, to really focus.
Well, we are getting really, this time has flown by.
Yes.
Real quick, what other services do you provide?
Okay, so I do editing
Mhm.
and copywriting for authors, small business owners, nonprofits, and
Mhm.
small business owners. Oh, I said that. And Christian church ministries. And I also do event planning.
You do event planning?
Yes. I don't mention any of that on my
No.
my editor's site because that's completely separate. I'm working on doing that.
Event planning. What kind of event plan? Real quick.
Events for whether it's like birthdays or conference or workshops.
Do you do book launches too?
That's something I haven't done, but I should, huh?
Yeah, you should.
Well, I'm the clipboard person for the event planning. So I'm not the person that does the decor, but I'm the one that's looking at the venue. I'm the one that can create the run of show for you, write your master script, things like that, to really help you make the event run smoothly behind the scenes, and even have like your time points to say, this is what you want to have.
You should put book launches on your list of things that you should be doing.
Sure.
You really
right.
should.
You're right. I'd been doing events my whole career, whether it was like working on like galas or what do you call it, golf tournaments and things, and it was really fun.
Oh, I used to work for I was the vice president of Missouri Alternative Education Network when I was teaching, and I was the conference organizer, and I did big conferences, and so I love doing it. All right, real quick, because we are down to 1 minute.
Uh-oh.
Big thanks to Carrie Holloway at successful-improvements.com. She's a longtime editor and copyright, helping authors and organizations turn ideas into powerful stories. And to our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. We will be back next week with more tips, resources, and engaging discussions. Our next guest will be Andy Dowdy from Edit Right, WRIGHT.com. So don't miss it. You can catch Author's Edge every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 102.9, or stream online at KXOK102.com, KWRH929.com, and on the free apps iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. We are also on My Genre Radio Network weekdays at 8 a.m. Missed an episode? Find us anytime on SoundCloud, YouTube, or at authorsedge.org. That's authorsedge.org. Thanks again for listening. Thank you, Carrie Holloway, for being with us. And we'll see you next time around the inkwell. Bada boom, bada bang.